From the dawn of time, our ancestors have left us with the tales. Stories which speak of things that they have seen and lived alongside by, feared, respected, and even looked to some of them as godlike. Modern man refers to such things as spirits, extraterrestrials, demons, cryptids, creatures, and entities of all kinds, and so much more. These things and tales are now referred by most as myths and legends. But there are those of us that know what our ancestors spoke of was the truth. Those of us that have become obsessed in searching for answers and finding out the truth are here. We need the truth. This search brings us into the realm of the unexplained and unknown. It brings us on the trail. The search for living legends. Please join JR and I on the quest, and welcome to the search.
Welcome everybody to another edition of the Scoop 'em Session Round. Oh my God, where's my head at tonight, boys? Sorry, another episode of On the Trail in Search of Living Legends. This week we're very fortunate to have my personal friend and just, in my opinion, the best authority when it comes to aquatic cryptids in the world, Mr. Scott Mardis. Scott, how you doing, sir?
Good. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. It's always a pleasure. We always get into some good discussions when you're on, so I figured we'd go for another good one tonight,
Yeah.
But Gary, good to see you once again, sir. I know we just saw each other a little while ago, but I still missed you.
At least we got that stinking computer fixed.
Finally. You see that, Nate? Computer's all rocking and rolling. We got Mr. Nate Rudd with us. Yeah, finally, man. We can go back to get back to normal.
You know, I always appreciate being here with you guys, man. You guys are brothers. And Scott, thanks for on the show.
Yep. I've already been on here once before, maybe even twice.
Yeah, you were on with me. You were on with me and Sean last year. And then you came on the other show that Stacy and I do together.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I had to have you on this one with this group of guys here. They'll be enthralled when they hear you talk about these things, man.
Yeah.
I know I do. I get enthralled.
Did you guys ever see the Champ episode of Monster Quest?
Oh, yeah.
I'm on it.
I know. Yeah, just wait until I get started in on you. I got a whole bunch of questions.
Oh, yeah. He'll pick your brain. Yeah.
I'm good. I'm going to go look for that. I may have seen it, but I can't quite remember. But I'm going to go.
Anyway,
I'll send it to you, Nate, right quick.
I've been doing field research at Lake Champlain since 1992.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm supposed to go back in June, so
that will give me a call, man. I'd love to do some that type of investigation. I've never done anything like that. That'd be great. I tell you what, you take me out in the boat, I'll take you out in the woods.
Just bought a new set of hydrophones.
Cool. Awesome.
Underwater listening to listen for the sounds these things are supposed
to. Yep.
Very cool.
Scott's got an amazing mind if these guys that sonar picture's public anyway, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, he's got one of the best, and when was that taken? That sonar, when was that?
2017.
It's unbelievable. It's the best I've ever seen in this thing, and you can tell it's got that, would you say, it plesiosaur-like shape?
Yeah.
Classic shape, yeah.
It's shaped like a round blob, like a large body, and then it's got like what looks like a long neck and some kind of a head coming off of that.
Yeah.
And
it's just
amazing.
Under
the boat for about 2 minutes, and then disappeared. So.
Wow.
We think it probably was a champ, but there's no way to be 100% sure. Estimated the size somewhere between 10 and 13 feet long. Now, it's always possible it could have been a piece of wood debris or a densely packed school of fish, but it certainly looked like it on the sonar.
That's what I like about Scott. Is he'll say, yeah, it definitely could have been, but then he'll dissect it. You got it.
Until we find a biological specimen of something, we're not there yet.
No.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just the way it is.
Yeah, we know the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding.
If you
Scott
think,
is
you know, if you believe these cryptids are flesh and blood animals, the only thing that's ever going to settle a question is a type specimen, a biological specimen of some kind
Yeah, sure,
that matches what people are seeing. You know.
absolutely. Gary, do you have a question?
I was just on to ask Scott if the ocean egress and degress point is the river. Is it still running into Champlain?
Yes, it's actually connected on both ends
Yeah.
to the Atlantic Ocean, but we're talking about, I believe, running from the bottom of Lake Champlain to Long Island Sound is like 300 miles. And going the other direction, north through the Richelieu River into the St. Lawrence River, to get out to the ocean, you have to go like 600-700 miles.
Yeah, it's a good ways.
So, you know, it's a long way both directions.
Yeah,
And there are canal systems on both of the rivers, which an animal would have to get around. I'm not saying it couldn't get around it. I'm just saying they have a hard time being conspicuous getting around it.
right.
Yeah.
And there's dams too. So
The reason I was asking is because, you know, of course, I'm sure you've already covered this, and that's what I was going to ask you. Is there any chance that a sturgeon could have got in there?
well, yeah, definitely. Well, there's already lake sturgeons that can get 7 feet long living in the lake all the time. These are non-migratory. They migrate into the rivers to spawn, but they don't go out to sea.
Yeah.
Now, in the St. Lawrence River and the Hudson River, there are ocean-going sturgeons, the Atlantic sturgeons, which get much bigger, that can get 14 feet long.
Yeah.
Now, it's not impossible that occasionally one of those could get into the lake during times of high water, like, say, the flooding that happened during Hurricane Irene back in 2011.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are times of high water. So one of the dams that's on the Richelieu River was never completed. So it's entirely possible something could get through that. And sturgeons, when they're spawning, do all kinds of weird behavior. They'll even jump over boats.
Oh, wow.
So I could see a big sturgeon jumping over a dam or jumping over a canal lock and possibly getting in once in a blue moon. Now, there was a 6'9" dead lake sturgeon washed up in about 5 years ago at a place called allm
Wow.
at Lake Champlain. So, you know, you saw one of those fish, you know, it's really startling. Yeah, sturgeon is weird looking anyway. They look like a crocodile and a shark.
Yeah.
They're shaped like a shark, but they have the scoots on their back like crocodiles.
Right.
So
And
I didn't know what one was, and plus they have whiskers like a catfish too.
Right.
And their mouth is weird looking too. It comes out, drops out of the bottom of their head like a vacuum cleaner hose because they're bottom feeders.
Yeah.
They normally suck things off the bottom, you know, like crayfish,
Yeah.
small fish, and stuff of that nature, mussels. So you know, but if you had one of these 14-footers get in, you really would think you saw a monster.
Yeah, I mean,
And
you're right.
Another thing, when they're spawning and going into the rivers, they come in groups. There was a book, a skeptical book about cryptozoology, maybe you've read it, called Abominable Science.
Mm-hmm.
That came out a few years ago. And they were talking about sea serpents. And they made a graph. And what it showed was looking at a pod of dolphins, a model of a pod of dolphins from above, looking straight down on it, right? And what you see is a bunch of backs, and they're all spaced out apart from each other in kind of a circular group. Then they made another graph showing what the same image or the same configuration would look like viewed from the side. Like if you were at water level and in a boat looking at it sideways. And if you're looking at it sideways, you don't see the spaces between them. All you see is a series of humps in a row. In other words, what I'm saying is you can look at a group of objects that are not close together from the side, and from the angle you're looking at them, they look like they're all close together and maybe even connected one large object.
Right.
Now you could take the same idea and apply it to a group of spawning sturgeons viewed from the side could look like a sea serpent. And sometimes these lake sturgeons will porpoise up out of the water with their head pointing up toward the sky and moving their head from side to side because the body underneath is swinging around. Now, if that's poked up high enough out of the water, that could theoretically look like a long neck too.
Sure.
Wow.
So let's say, once in a blue moon, you've got a bunch of these horny sturgeons headed toward the river, all in a group, and most of them, all you're seeing is the back, and there's one at the front waving his head around like this out of the water. So, that could definitely cause some, misidentifications and false reports.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
yeah, you got to take, there are some very impressive sightings of Champ in the sightings record that are so close and so detailed, you can't dismiss them as anything but, well, these people at least think they've seen a prehistoric sea monster.
Right.
But then you've got marginal accounts of things viewed from long distances that are not as good, that could possibly be some of these misidentifications.
And I'm sure in your day, you're in your career as an investigator and researcher, you've probably seen plenty of both, heard plenty of both.
Absolutely. You watch a lake for 28 years,
Yeah.
you finally get used to figuring out, well, that was a boat weight and that was a standing wave. Sometimes you can have two boat weights that bump into each other and they cancel each other out, and they'll sit in one spot and roll over and over each other. And it looks like a black hump sitting in one place, rolling over and over in the water. There's video from Loch Ness and from Lake Champlain showing this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And it looks like an animal from a distance, but it's really nothing but water. And floating logs, too. I've got photographs, plenty of photographs that I've taken myself of floating logs that look like plesiosaurs. So,
That's interesting. That's interesting. Tell Nate, you're gonna find this interesting, and I know that I'm just throwing this out there, but Scott, tell them about how they're known to be seen on land once in a while. I find that the coolest thing.
Plenty of reports from Loch Ness. Probably the most famous, if you're familiar with the history of the Loch Ness monster, there was Arthur Grant's sighting when he was on a motorcycle back in 1934, and he saw one cross the road in front of him and go into the water. He saw a thing that looked like a plesiosaur. And then it was about 6 months before that, July of 1933, this couple, Mr. Spicer and his wife, were riding down the road about 3 o'clock in the afternoon at Loch Ness and saw what they described as a giant slug-looking creature with a long neck crossing the road in front of their car and going into the lake. Now, it's happened at Lake Champlain probably, 5 or 6 times with a long neck. But a lot of the reports from Lake Champlain of these creatures ashore sound very much like the ones from Loch Ness. And usually, they're not far from the water, and they're moving in a really awkward movement. Like they don't normally move around too much on land, sort of like a sea turtle or flopping around like a seal maybe, which they debate based on the skeletal anatomy whether plesiosaurs could do that or not, but it's entirely possible that they could.
Sure.
It would take me a minute to dig it up, but I can give you the specifics if you'll give me a minute to look through my files here.
I mean, anything you want to share, Scott?
Our time is your time.
Our time, yeah, exactly.
Give me a minute to bring up. I got a file. It's nothing but Amphibious Champ reports.
Oh, nice.
Scott's lost some weight since the Monster Quest episode.
Good. All right. Here we go. Amphibious Champ reports. This one, I don't know the guy's name, but I know another investigator that knows the son of this guy. It says, occasionally a sighting has something peculiar about it that will make it more distinctive and memorable than the usual run. I recall an incident where a Burlington doctor was one night crossing the field that connects the big islands at the northern part of the lake with the mainland when his headlights picked out a grotesque reptilian object large enough to be one of our monsters crawling from one side of the broad field to the other. He stopped his car and watched it, I believe, until it slithered into the water on the opposite side of the field from which it had obviously emerged and disappeared. The unique point of this incident is that the thing, whatever it was navigating on land, as these creatures are sometimes reported as doing. So this is an interview with Leon Dean, a folklore professor and professor of English at the University of Vermont back in the 1950s, who collected champ reports. This is from a magazine from 1977.
Wow.
Okay, now let's see here. This one is from 1961. Have you ever heard of Joe Zarzinski?
Sounds familiar for some reason.
All right, he was a champ investigator back in the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
And wrote a book called Champ Beyond the Legend. This is from his book. This happened on the New York side of the lake.
Okay.
Over in Westport, if you know where Westport, New York.
Absolutely.
Right.
Nate, if you're not familiar, Nate's from Washington State. Lake Champlain, half of it is, you've got the New York side and you've got the Vermont side. So it's kind of
the entire western side is New York State, and most of the eastern side is Vermont. But you go down to the extreme south, and even that side is New York State too.
Okay.
I didn't know
What
that.
happened in 1961? What the guy's describing is it was laying halfway out onto the shore with its body in the water. Okay?
Really?
I'm going to read the report here. It says, in the spring of 1961, Thomas E. Morse reported a champ sighting in Northwest Bay, Westport, New York. When first seen, it appeared as a massive gunmetal gray, approximately 18 inches wide cable on the shore and out into the lake, pinned Mr. Morse on September 20th, 1980. It appeared to be a monstrous eel with white teeth that raked rearward in the mouth. Morse's sighting was from a car while driving adjacent to and overlooking the bay. He reports the creature, while on the shore, lifted its head a full 4 feet, possibly because of the car noise.
Wow.
Then I've got one, the most recent one I've got is from 1991. Let me see here. Okay. It says, about March 23rd, 1991, 9:30 to 9:45 p.m. out of Orville's Marsh in Otter Creek. Todd Eustace was riding his ATV along a towpath when his headlight lit up what appeared to be a black animal crossing the path. It made enough noise as it crashed through the marsh woods that he could hear it over the sound of his engine. It was off the ground as high as his chest and had about 15 feet of tail, which he might have ridden over. It was slow moving on land, and when it reached the water, it quickly disappeared. He returned to Warden and found a V indentation in the mud. He also reportedly found pushback prints, each with 2 toe marks. So
Wow.
that's the most recent amphibious report.
That's cool.
Those are really cool, man. I'm getting these images in my head as you're telling those stories.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, right?
It's all very similar to the reports from Loch Ness.
Now, do you believe that they are one and the same?
Probably the descriptions are the same.
Yeah.
A lot of the photographic evidence resembles each other.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you read in that one. Now, 15. He described 15 feet just of tail. So what would that make? Well, I know he was riding. It's a guesstimation at the time.
I don't
That would
know.
make-
I'm guessing maybe 25 feet long, possibly.
Well, doesn't that coincide with plesiosaur? I think plesiosaur is 20 to 40 feet.
Some plesiosaurs got 40 feet long.
Yeah.
Huge. So, plesiosaurs were a whole order or suborder of marine reptiles, and they were all different kinds. There were some that got about 5 feet long, and as I said, there were other ones that got 40 feet long. Some of them had long necks with small heads, and other ones had big heads with short necks. And it was a whole grade of different types in between those.
Now, do we know through any archaeological evidence if plesiosaur was would go on land and sea, would an amphibian?
Well, they debate about that. It's debated. The reason they debate it is some paleontologists don't believe that the way the plesiosaur's shoulder bones and flipper bones were built, that they would have been able to push themselves up off the ground like a seal.
Yeah.
Because of the way the flippers are built. But there's debate about that. The other point of contention is the way that the hips connect on the back flippers to the spinal column. Some paleontologists believe that the connection between the pelvic flippers and the spinal column was too weak for it to be able to use the back flippers to help push the body up.
Interesting.
So there's, they may never be able to resolve that without being able to go back in a time machine.
Right.
And look at a plesiosaur alive or finding one alive today.
Right.
I'm hoping they do, but we're not there yet. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, do you think these ones that have gotten, that we see in Lake Champlain have evolved into ones over the, thousands of years, evolved into one specific type?
Looking at the geologic history of Lake Champlain, we know that up until about 13,500 years ago, what is now Lake Champlain was filled with a solid block, a mile thick of ice.
Yeah.
Nothing could have been living there then. So the idea is, and this is the same situation at Loch Ness, is that when the Ice Age ended, all this ice melted. And all that water had to go somewhere. So when all this ice melted, it raised the level of the lakes, and it also raised the sea level. And it caused the sea to actually invade places like Loch Ness and Lake Champlain.
Oh, okay.
And marine animals came in. They've got fossils of prehistoric whales and seals and things that were living in what they called the Champlain Sea, which is the marine predecessor to Lake Champlain. So that has been confirmed again and again, that what is now Lake Champlain was an arm of a prehistoric sea at the end of the Ice Age. I mean, there's no doubt, because they've got the whale and seal fossils to prove it, from around 10,000 to 12,500 years ago. So we know for sure, and they believe that Loch Ness was also, because they found fossils of marine clams and sea urchin spines in a layer of clay at the bottom of Loch Ness. So there's evidence that around the same time period as the Champlain Sea existed, roughly, that Loch Ness was also marine. So the idea is that whatever Champ's ancestors were came in from the sea during that period. And one thing you have to realize, the continental plates move around the surface of the earth on a layer of lava. During the Ice Age, when these mile-thick glaciers were on top of these continental plates, it made the continental plates go down. And once the ice had melted, it took time for them to bounce back up. So there was a window in between the time the ice melted and the land began to rise again from the loss of the weight of the glaciers, that there was a brief period of a few thousand years where the land level was low enough for the sea to get in, and all the melted ice raised the water level. So you had a combination of both of those that created these inland seas and connections to the sea. Okay, about 10,000 years ago, the land began to rise. When it rose, it cut off access to the sea in Lake Champlain. And over time, what was left behind slowly became fresh water. So whatever was living in these bodies of water that got trapped had to slowly adapt to freshwater conditions or die.
Right.
Wouldn't that kind of explain how they found like megalodon teeth 100 miles or 200 miles inland?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
even look at the bull shark today. I mean, they found it thousands of miles up rivers.
Yeah.
The bull shark is
Up
able
Mississippi.
its metabolism to live in either salt or fresh water.
Yeah.
So it has the ability to change its blood chemistry to do that all the time.
You know, in what you were saying, Scott, I was in a discussion with doing a show probably 2 years ago with a guy about Champagne, and he was a biologist, marine biologist, and he mentioned something about, he was kind of skeptic, and he said if we had plesiosaurs in the lakes, why didn't we have them in the well, the question came up. I can't remember if he said it or if he answered it, but why didn't we have them in the ocean? And
sea serpents are.
well, yeah, but if you think about it too, also predators, you know, in the ocean, they would have predators, great white sharks, you know, the newer species. In the lakes, they wouldn't be. They would be the top of the apex.
Absolutely.
So they could have been disbanded in the oceans and still be in the freshwater system.
Well, you got plenty of reports of plesiosaur-like sea monsters from the ocean.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're called long-necked sea serpents.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was about to say is that whatever the Champ's ancestors were came from the ocean. So we don't know, you know, if plesiosaurs managed to survive, they would have survived for millions and millions of years out in the ocean before they ever came into Loch Ness or Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
Speaking hypothetically.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that if Champ's ancestors came from the ocean 13,500 years ago, we don't know how far back their ancestors have been living in the ocean. So that opens up a whole can of nails, you know, like the coelacanth. The coelacanth was supposed to have been extinct for 80 million years and turned up alive. And since that discovery, there's only been 2 fossils found from past that time. They found one bone from Sweden from about 50 million years ago, and supposedly one fish in Israel from about 20 million years ago. So that entire missing 80 million year fossil gap is only covered by those 2 fossils.
Now they found 2 of them, right?
Yeah.
One in Indonesia and one in Africa, right?
2 individual fish, 30 million years apart, to account for a missing 80 million year fossil.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
And that's the fossils of the coelacanth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we have the live one that
there's 2 species now. They discovered another species in 1998.
Yeah.
And I've been reading a recent paper that came out talking about how long these 2 species they know about now have been separated, and based on the genetic analysis, they predict that there's a 3rd species out there somewhere that they haven't found yet. So it's probably going to happen again sometime in the near future. So just wait.
That to me is awesome, because that goes to show that there are things out there that we just have no clue about. You know?
I see somebody's kidding.
Yeah, that would be nice.
I got 2 of them here, and I normally see the snake going back and usually up in the window.
Now, the coelacanth, how large of a fish would they have been? Were the ones they found?
There were prehistoric ones on the age of the dinosaurs that got 13 feet long.
Oof.
Living ones get about 6 feet long. Still a big fish.
Still a big fish, yeah.
But the prehistoric ones we're talking about would get about as big probably as a big grouper.
And that's big. That's big.
Yeah.
So
Didn't the natives in that area in Africa say they had been catching this was a norm for them to catch these things?
yeah, they actually had a common name for it. They called it the gambessa. Was their name for it?
Gambas, okay.
So they knew about it. They very rarely caught it, but they knew what it was, and they knew it well enough that it had a common name. So
Yeah.
Wow.
and this was
Right.
years before the scientists ever found it. So.
And that was off the coast of Africa, or was that internal freshwater?
Off the coast of South Africa, there's a series of islands, the Comoro Islands.
Yeah. We
That's
do great
where
white. Yeah.
they found the first bunch, and the second bunch they found in Indonesia. And it turns out the Indonesians knew about that one before the scientists did too.
That's amazing.
They're different colors too. The ones from the South Africa region are bluish color, and the ones from Indonesia are a brown color.
Yeah.
So, and they're different species. I mean, they have the same genus, but a different species name.
Issues, yeah. And
So, they've been split apart about, I don't know, I think I read 12 million years, a long time. And what split them into two different species is that millions of years ago, India was not connected to Asia. The Indian subcontinent slowly moved and connected to Asia. When that landmass started moving, it split the two ancestors apart on either sides of India, and they went and changed into two different species because of that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know,
that's
when you're analyzing stuff like this, you have to look at, you know, all kinds of things like geology,
you do.
regional geology, and limnology, which is the study of lakes, lake productivity. You know, how does the food chain in the lake work?
You know, one thing that I always thought was real interesting is if you like you talking about the geology and the studyology of the lakes, if you look at Lake Champlain and Loch Ness, the depth, the terrain, the way they're very similar. And
the middle part of Lake Champlain is very similar to Loch Ness, but you've got one difference is that you have all these little arms that break off on the side on Champlain.
Yeah.
That make little bays that you don't see that much at Loch Ness.
Yeah.
Right.
So Lake Champlain is 120 miles long with a maximum depth of 400 feet. Loch Ness is 24 miles long, but it's got a maximum depth of 750 feet deep.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a wall of water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Yeah. So
it is.
Yeah, the middle part of Lake Champlain, you've got the middle part, main part of the lake, you've got depths between 250 and 400 feet deep. So plenty of room for something down there to hide.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Plenty of fish. I mean,
you get out in the middle of it, you think you're on the ocean.
You do. I mean, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's just massive. I mean,
Well,
go ahead, Gary.
I was just gonna back you up on what you were saying. Champagne, unlike Ness, and I mean Ness has fish in it, but Champagne is a sportsman's dream. You know, a lot
fishing, bass fishing. They have a bass fishing tournament there every year.
Yeah.
Lake trout. It's just amazing.
Much more biodiversity in Lake Champlain than there is in Loch Ness.
Yeah. So you could see that was one of the arguments they made with Loch Ness is there was not enough supporting structure, a food structure to support.
Part of the problem with trying to predict the food supply in Loch Ness is that they have a good handle on the resident fish population that's in there all the time. But part of what's going on is you have a lot of migratory fish. You've got salmon, coming and going to spawn, and then the young salmon going out, and eels that come in and out, spawning and breeding. So those numbers are constantly changing. So I don't see how you can possibly ever get a solid count of the migratory fish that are moving in and out of Loch Ness, because that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
Right.
And we know that a lot of cold-blooded animals sometimes go through periods of feast and famine. When there's a lot of fish moving in and out, they'll eat a whole lot.
Yeah.
And then maybe not eat again for 6 months.
Well, and if you think, they describe the plesiosaur, and they describe Champlain as reptilian, look at a boa or a python. A python can go months without eating between meals.
You have things like the leatherback sea turtle, which is the closest living thing that we know of yet to a plesiosaur.
Oh, wow.
And it's got special adaptations to its muscles and its circulatory system that helps it maintain a high body temperature, yet it's still got a reptilian metabolism.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. It's very cool.
It's effectively warm-blooded, but it has a low reptilian metabolism. So it's got the best of the world. And there's speculation that plesiosaurs and those other marine reptiles probably had a physiology somewhere between what you see in a leatherback turtle and a bird, which is partially warm-blooded, but not quite the same way as a mammal.
Right.
Reptiles have all kinds of tricks they can do to get oxygen directly from the water through their skin. They found a turtle in Australia that sucks water into its butt, and there's a sac in its butt that's lined with blood vessels, and the oxygen works like a fish gill, and it goes directly into their bloodstream from those blood vessels that line the sac. So you've got a turtle in Australia that is breathing like a fish with a gill.
Wow.
They turned its butt into a gill. So we don't know if Champ or Nessie may be doing something similar as well.
Yeah.
Right.
One important point that I didn't get to go over is the fact that they know that some of the fish living in Lake Champlain now are definitely leftovers from the Champlain Sea. Like you've got landlocked Atlantic salmon. They don't go out to sea to spawn. They go into the rivers to spawn because they've adapted to fresh water.
Right.
And there's a fish called the rainbow smelt
Mm-hmm.
that's also primarily a marine fish, and it's adapted to fresh water in the lake. And they've done genetic studies on the sea lamprey in Lake Champlain and found out that they've been isolated somewhere around 10,000 years too. So basically what I'm saying is you've got concrete proof from some of the fish that are living in the lake now that it's possible that something could have adapted from the marine conditions of the Champlain Sea thousands of years ago and still be living in Lake Champlain now.
Yeah.
Because these fish have done it and it's proven.
You kind of answered the question I was going to ask you. What happens during the wintertime and the ice freezes, and you've got 2 feet of ice over the lake. Well, what if they do have something similar to that turtle?
Yeah. Well, not only that, there's a lake up in northern Quebec going toward the Arctic with a population of freshwater harbor seals.
Yeah.
And that lake freezes over, and they tried to figure out, well, how do these seals survive under a completely frozen lake? And what they found out is that as the lake is freezing, the water level goes down because the water is being sucked into the layer of ice over the top. And it creates an air pocket between the ice over the top of the lake and the surface of the water. And they're breathing in that air pocket. So these are warm-blooded seals that don't have the ability to absorb oxygen directly from the water like a reptile, and they're surviving. So if you took that ability plus added the reptilian abilities on top of that, then that would solve the whole problem right there. And there are some years that Lake Champlain completely freezes over.
Yeah.
It's very rare anymore, but it does happen.
Yeah.
That's
amazing that you just mentioned about the seals, because like you said, the seal isn't a reptile, you know, and it's just amazing the adaptation that animals have to go through to
there you go.
survive.
That's a case I can point to.
Speaking of seals, has there not been, if I'm trying to remember, has there not been seals seen in Champagne?
Yes. Back in the 1800s.
Yes.
3 cases. One was killed in Burlington, I think, in 1876.
And if I recall right, there has been freshwater porpoises seen.
Yeah, well, there are, occasionally. There was a dolphin got loose in a lake in Ireland a few years back. And if you go to South America and parts of Asia, you got wholly freshwater river dolphins.
Yes.
Which are not regular dolphins, but they're adapted water dolphin-sized small whales that are actually living fossils.
Yep.
That are basically unchanged for about 50 million years.
Very interesting looking animal. They are very interesting.
If you've heard about Ken's new Nessie book, Ken Gerhard, he explores another theory that these monsters may not be plesiosaurs or reptiles, but may be primitive whales called zeuglodons. Are you familiar with that theory?
I've heard that, but I know of the zeuglodon. I've seen them.
Yeah, it was a very weird missing link between the land ancestors of whales and modern whales. And it didn't look like a typical whale. It looked like a 60-foot conger eel with the head of a crocodile. That's what it looked like. Scary animal.
Yeah.
And it preyed on other smaller whales that were related to it. And according to conventional geology, it died out about 35 million years ago. And the smaller relatives of it are the direct ancestors of all the living whales today. So it's generally considered to be a dead end, evolutionary-wise, a branch that ended with a dead end. But a lot of these sea serpent and lake monster reports do sound like zeuglodons. So actually, the reports out on the west coast of Cadborosaurus and the Ogopogo, I'm inclined to think those could be zeuglodons because they are somewhat different in the reports.
Yeah.
And it's entirely possible that thousands of years ago, a group of these Cadborosauruses swam up the Columbia River and wound up landlocked in Okanagan Lake. And that may be the origin of the Ogopogo.
It does make sense.
Happening after the Ice Age on the East Coast here were also happening out on the West Coast. The Hydrogeology glaciers there too. So the same sort of history, geologic history, is at work in places like Flathead Lake in Montana and Okanagan Lake in British Columbia. And
you know,
a series of other lakes around that region that you don't hear too much about. Like there are some reported monster lakes in Idaho and Utah and Nevada.
Even Oklahoma.
The Oklahoma.
Really?
Oklahoma octopus, yeah.
That is a very confusing series of reports right there. I think there's something going on, but I doubt it's an octopus because cephalopods are not supposed to be able to adapt to water conditions. But,
well, what's going on? Let's hear about it there, gentlemen.
Well, I'd have to dig up my file on it. Hang on a minute here.
Scott, you answered my question. I was going to ask you about the Northwest. You just told me some stuff I wasn't aware of, but there's a lake in Idaho. It's called Pend Oreille Lake. And they say there's...
L'Oreal, right?
Yeah, Pend Oreille.
Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah. Maybe I'm mispronouncing it.
Yeah, so it's a real deep lake. There's a nuclear base there where they test nuclear submarines and stuff. I guess they claim there's parts of that lake they can't measure how deep it is. That seems hard to believe to me. I mean, I'm sure, you know, but you kind of wonder what's lurking in a lake like that. It's a big lake.
I do know that they have done submarine trials there, and that stuff has been kind of
that's wicked,
top secret. So, but beyond that, I will tell you this: you've heard of Flathead Lake, right?
Yeah, Montana.
In Montana.
Yeah. Okay. Well, where Flathead Lake sits now was a giant inland lake called Glacial Lake Missoula.
Mm-hmm.
It was held in by an ice dam. Eventually, around the end of the ice age, that ice dam broke, and the flood went all the way to the mouth of the Columbia River.
Wow.
To the ocean. And we're talking, that's hundreds and hundreds of miles. So it would have gone over Washington State and everything. So the idea is that something could have come in during back flooding and made it to where Flathead Lake is now from the ocean in there.
That makes sense. You know, when you go through the Columbia Gorge there, Scott, and just even other places like when you're going to Waterville and Wenatchee, Washington, you go through canyons where you can see those water levels that are way up there, you know.
Well, the geologists have a name for that area. It's called the channeled scabland.
Yeah.
You'll look it up, you'll see, and they'll talk about there was a geologist named Harlan Bretz figured out this whole thing about the flood. And there's a Wikipedia page, I think it's on, you look up Brett's floods and it will tell you everything that I'm talking about.
What's it called? Brent's floods?
Bretz.
Okay.
Brett's floods.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to look that up.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm going to open my file on the Oklahoma octopus. Hang on.
Yes.
All right. I took a whole bunch of this stuff and consolidated it into one file because I had so many people asking me about the Oklahoma octopus. And I thought, well, okay, I'll put it all in this one file and I'll just send them the file and they can read it themselves.
I'm going to blow your mind, Scott, when you get done with that.
All right, let me see here.
I got a very simple and very way to prove the Oklahoma octopus. I've got video.
Oh, awesome. Can't wait. All right, let's do this.
Does it look like an octopus?
Well, let's put it this way. People's interpretation, this is what they're interpreting is the Oklahoma octopus, but it's not.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I did find out. In southern Oklahoma, I believe over in the southeast corner, there is a population of alligators.
There is. And Red River all the way up the Red River into Lake Texoma.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So, you know, alligators, that's what they do. That's their strategy. They'll grab hold of something and drown it and then take the dead body and hide it and eat it later because they like to eat rotten meat.
Well, you do know that we have catfish in this
state. Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
yeah. Drag you under, too.
Huge, yeah.
I've been drug under 2 or 3 times, noodling the rascals.
Oh, yeah, man. You couldn't pay me to do it. I'm sorry.
You know, I know. Me neither.
But key point, you know, everybody knows that, you know, Falk, Arkansas has alligators. There's a breeding population in Smith Lake.
That's way up. That's way up almost to Texas.
It's literally on the northeast corner. Well, that the Red River runs right through Falk. I've got pictures of a 12-foot alligator from Falk, Arkansas.
Wow.
Lake Texoma.
You got the White River monster in Arkansas too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
They don't know. If I had to guess, I would say probably an alligator gar, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay. So
we've got alligator gar that'll get 6-7 feet long here too.
Yeah. Oh wow, they can get bigger than that. They can get 10 feet long.
Yeah, the biggest I've personally seen is 6 feet. But you know, when he pulls up his file and when he gets done, I'm gonna throw something at y'all video wise that's on a what?
The main place that the Oklahoma octopus has been reported from is Lake Thunderbird.
Yep, which is about 15 miles from where I'm sitting right now.
And
interesting name.
What did you say, Scott?
It's a reservoir. It was man-made.
Yes. It
says Lake Thunderbird is a reservoir located in Norman, Oklahoma. The lake was constructed between 1962 and 1965 for the purposes of providing municipal water to the nearby communities of Dale City, Midwest City, and Norman. It is formed by an earthfill embankment 7,300 feet long and up to 140 feet high on the Little River. So it was made out of a river.
Yes.
So something theoretically could have been left behind from the river.
Yeah, but
Right.
the whole thing is, if it was man-made, how are you going to get an octopus in there unless it came down the river, like you said?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying there's not a monster. I'm just very skeptical about it being an octopus.
Well,
Right.
you know, what is the first thing that you think about with, you know, with the deaths, you know, because we have had some deaths from this. And what does an octopus do? It wraps around you, and it's got multiple tentacles that's wrapping around you. And an octopus will literally bite with its tentacles, you know, the cups.
Yeah,
Marks on
have
your
teeth in them. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. You ready?
Yeah, go
Let's
ahead.
have it.
I'm going to say it, then I'll prove it. Years and years ago, noodling, I, as a young man, I was up against a bank, and my grandfather turned around and said, "Son, do not move. Do not turn around. Don't do nothing. Do not move." And I looked over my shoulder, and I seen something floating about. I was neck deep in water, floating right across my back.
Wow.
And
It was a gator.
nope, it was this right here. Now, this is from South Oklahoma. Let's see, share screen. Now, this is shallow water, but think of it in deep water. Now, would that not be underwater? Would that not make you think it was an octopus?
Yes. I can see.
Snake.
That is about 20 snakes in a breeding ball, and that's what they do.
That's
Is a bunch of males will get
poisonous too. What are those?
these are water moccasins.
Moccasins.
Yes, they
Yeah,
are.
they're poisonous.
Yeah.
I grew up in Alabama, so I know what a water moccasin is.
Now, if that came across you, or if you got seen that underwater or seen that floating through the water, would that not make you think that it was an octopus?
If you
I can
got
see where it could, for
that would
sure.
kill you too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it does.
absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot more sense than an octopus to me.
Yeah.
It's actually a really decent theory. You're absolutely.
Do you want me to go over the sightings?
Sure.
I do. Yes,
All right,
absolutely.
hang on a
For these
second.
guys, yes.
Let's see.
Please.
And we're going to have Scott come on my show just for that, because we're based out of
Absolutely.
Oklahoma. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, Lake
Absolutely.
Thunderbird. He said my city, Dale City.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.
Another interesting name where a lot of interesting things go on, you know, as we found in our research, gentlemen.
Okay, let's see. I'm trying to get to the actual sightings.
Yeah, that's no problem.
I know they've talked about it in every lake here. Thunderbird, Oologah, Texoma,
Mm.
All right, here's
Eufaula.
what it says. I was not able to find much in the way of evidence. As a matter of fact, I really only came up with one intriguing incident where there is physical evidence of an octopus being pulled from a freshwater reservoir, and it occurred in Arkansas, Oklahoma's neighbor to the east. On December 1st, 2003, Illinois resident John Mazurak caught a fair-sized octopus that was clinging to one of the gates of the dam of Lake Conway.
Really?
Wow.
Mazurak was out fishing when he spotted the octopus and grabbed it. The catch was confirmed by Arkansas Fish and game officials who said they had no idea how the octopus found its way into the reservoir. They theorized that someone had kept the octopus as a pet and dumped it in the lake once it grew too large. This certainly makes sense, but the dumping would have to taken place not too long before Mr. Mazurak came along,
Yeah, because they can't survive.
as the octopus was still alive when he caught it. Just
Wow.
how long a marine octopus could survive in a freshwater reservoir is up for debate, but most would agree that it's not very long.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of mind blowing.
Yeah. So
wow.
I was going to mention that You know, in the Finger Lakes region of New York.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a lake called Lake Onondaga.
Oh yeah, they know it well.
Sometime around the turn of the century, 1901, 1902, somewhere in there, there's the mystery of squids that were found on the banks of Lake Onondaga. I got a bunch of information on that.
I was going to ask you about squid, Scott. That kind of came to mind earlier. I just didn't get it.
Well, here's some more about the Oklahoma cases. It says, there are numerous problems with an idea of a population of octopus or any other cephalopod maintaining a breeding population in an inland freshwater lake or reservoir in Oklahoma. The first, maybe most damning fact that there's no natural lakes in Oklahoma. Zero, not a zilch. Every lake of any size at all in the Sooner State is a man-made reservoir.
Absolutely.
No lake in Oklahoma goes back long enough to make the alleged 200-year-old Native American legends possible. Lake Thunderbird was impounded between 1962 and 1965, and Lake Tenkiller, though older, was built around 1947, 1950.
Yeah.
So, let me see here. So basically, what they seem to be saying here is there seems to be no history of confirmed cases that you can go say, well, this person got attacked on this date, such and such. I'm sure there are mysterious drownings, but I would say, if you ask my opinion, that the snake idea that you're talking about makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. That's good.
Beyond that, I would say alligators.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I do know I've personally seen a account in Lake Eufaula in 91 or 92 where they documented that a 80-pound catfish pulled a skier under, a young boy skiing, and the reason I knew it was a catfish was from the damage on his legs, from the teeth.
Yeah.
And the way that a catfish does is they suck water in and pull back, and people's like, well, how would an 80-pound catfish swallow a kid? Well,
you can go, these big European catfish, the whales.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's video on YouTube of them coming up on the bank and eating pigeons the same way.
Yeah.
That killer whales will come up and eat a seal off the beach. They go
that's wicked.
on the bank and grab the bird and eat it in the water. So
I know a 60-pound catfish, I can open his mouth and I can slide it over my head like a hat. And I've got a 7 3/8 hat.
That's another possibility too.
Well,
to me, the snake thing is the most, because that is a common thing.
That looks like an octopus.
Yeah, and if it got on your body, it would dang sure feel like an octopus.
Yeah, I mean, and all that venom from all those different snakes would kill you.
Yeah,
in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's people don't talk about the Oklahoma octopus very much.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Well, here's something. Check this out. This is from August 9th, 2017, Mays County, Oklahoma. Officials confirmed someone found an octopus in Grand Lake. The find came Sunday on the heels of area storms that left extensive damage. Officials say they were able to explain why the creature was in the lake. Many have heard of mysterious octopus lurking in Oklahoma lakes, but few can claim to have actually seen such a creature. Officials confirmed Wednesday that a local lake goer, however, found an octopus in Oklahoma's Grand Lake Sunday. As much of Greene County cleaned up storm damage, lake officials opened an investigation of their own when they received a call concerning the 8-legged creature in Mays County. According to the Grand River Dam Authority, though, the octopus was part of a seafood buffet at a nearby yacht club. Somebody reportedly threw it in the water as part of a joke, where the lake goer later spotted it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. So somewhere in this file, I have the information about the case from Lake Onondaga.
Yeah, I'm curious about the squids because...
Me too.
So the theory about the Lake Onondaga ones is that it was bait, excess bait that somebody had from saltwater fishing and threw it away, and somehow it wound up in the lake.
Would that cause such a population, though? I mean,
well, they were all dead when they found them. They didn't find but a handful.
Okay.
Oh.
I understand what you're saying now. Okay.
Oh, I'll go over that anyway. Here's an explanation why cephalopods, squid, and octopus theoretically can't survive
Right.
in fresh water. And here's what it says. It says, do freshwater cephalopods exist? And if not, what is the most likely reason why not? Most aquatic species have freshwater and saltwater varieties. However, I cannot remember hearing of a freshwater cephalopod. Do they exist? And if not, what is the most likely reason why not? Cephalopods include squid, cuttlefish, octopus, and nautilus. All 1,000 or so species are voracious carnivores with large brains, complex behavior, and the ability to change color, texture, and shape to elude hungry predators keen to snack on the soft-bodied animals. They are found throughout the world's oceans, from the warm waters of the tropics down to sub-zero temperatures in polar regions. They can survive out of water for extended periods of time, and some, like the vampire squid Vampiroteuthis infernalis, can escape from predators by hiding in water so low in oxygen that the fish chase them would pass out. While cephalopods are clearly adapted at exploiting extreme environments, they are not found in fresh water. While we can't 100% certain it is unlikely there have ever been freshwater cephalopods, says cephalopod expert and head of science at the Victoria Museum, Dr. Mark Norman. Hang on.
It's funny. I'm reading the same stuff he is from the internet, and he's reading it from his personal files, literally word for word.
It's cool.
Here's the explanation. It says it's all to do with osmosis.
Yeah.
It is probable that they never developed a sodium pump that would help them cope with osmotic change in fresh water. Freshwater dwellers have salty blood relative to the water
around them without a mechanism in place to control it.
Go ahead and read it.
Osmosis would equalize the salt concentrations between the animal and the water surrounding it, pumping salt out of the body and flooding it with fresh water. Sodium pump like that found in freshwater fish species use chlorine cells on the gill surface to actively absorb sodium and potassium ions from the environment. Man, that makes me feel good. He's pulling up the same stuff I is, and he's the expert on it. That is cool, man.
Well, we all got to get our information from somewhere, you know?
Yeah,
hey, I'm excited because I didn't know.
He doesn't know something. He knows where to go look for it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
But, you know, one thing about that got my attention reading up here is that they could survive out of water for an extended period.
Yeah, I had no clue about that.
Basically, see, the difference between saltwater animals and freshwater animals, they have a different blood chemistry, and it has to do with the amount of salt that's in their body and the balance of chemicals and nutrients in their body. If the balance is not right, depending on whether they're in saltwater or freshwater, their body will malfunction and they'll die. A few animals have the ability with their kidneys to change their blood chemistry to go back and forth between salt and fresh water. And that
bull shark being one, right?
Shark, saltwater crocodile, some seals.
Greenland shark, do they?
Well, they think that the Greenland shark can do it, but there's no solid proof that they can. So,
but I mean, they're getting into the St. Lawrence and staying there for quite a while.
The lower end of the St. Lawrence is still salt water. They don't
the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they don't go up into the freshwater end of it.
Okay.
Yeah. But they still haven't ruled out the possibility they could do that.
Yeah.
No, there's no proof of it yet.
Right.
So salmon can do this. You know, they go back and forth from the sea into freshwater. Eels can do it.
Yep. Eels.
Because it's part of their breeding cycle. So what it has to do with is they can do something with their blood chemistry to change it to where they can flip and go to both environments. Some animals can't do that. A beluga whale could come into fresh water, but if it stays too long, it can go blind.
Mm.
So, you know.
Gotcha. You know, you mentioned the St. Lawrence. How far does that salt, the salinity, run inland there? Do you know?
I'm not sure, but I would imagine maybe a couple of 100 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a long haul.
It's a big river. It's a beast.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was looking at earlier. I know we was talking about the squid and stuff, but I was looking at earlier. The St. Lawrence is how we feed the Great Lakes, so we put big ships in there.
Yeah, but it's quite a long ways.
Yeah.
I'm opening up a file now that has the exact dimensions to get from the Gulf of St. Lawrence to Lake Champlain. I just have to open up the file.
Like a little over 80 miles, according to, I was just kind of measuring it on Google Earth, but the biggest thing back on on the Champ Monster that that you kind of really intrigued me, that I didn't know about, them saying they've seen it on land also.
Well, yeah,
it's cool.
Same with Nessie and same with Ogopogo too.
If that's the case, then it could easily traverse a river. I mean,
well, it could get out and crawl around obstructions like canal systems and all sorts of dams.
Yeah,
that too.
Well, we've got an example of that. Like, we heard the story a few weeks ago. Scott, remember when I first mentioned that story to you? I had heard from the native gentleman about the eel wrapping himself around the buoy, and they some sort of creature wrapping himself around the buoy in the shipping channel of the St. Lawrence.
Yeah,
and they were saying it was 25 foot. Well, I didn't even bring it up, and these guys can vouch. Remember when David brought it up?
That's what I was just fixing to thinking about was David. Yeah.
He brought it up out of nowhere, Scott. He says, we're getting more reports of this serpentine-like creature, and it's now coming up on people's decks down at Fraser's Point, which, is where a lot of camps are, sunning itself on their porches and, getting back into the water.
But in saying that, could that not be a reptile? Could that not be a snake?
Well, you got so many reports of a large body. I can't see that being a snake.
True.
I mean, they're talking about this thing being 20 feet long.
There are occasional eels that have a fat body like that. Now, a giant eel might be a better fit.
Yeah. But Jeremiah, you're saying that the thing you're saying 20 feet long, it doesn't have a fat body though, does it?
He didn't. Did he really get into that? I don't remember. I mean, it's thick, but he didn't really get
eels.
Not fat. It's more serpentine. He described.
Yeah.
There are giant eels, so maybe more than one kind of thing is being seen. We don't know yet.
Here's the thing: they are saying, I know that there could be other types of eels we haven't recognized yet, but the natives that have seen this thing, they are saying it's not an eel. I followed up on my uncle on it afterwards.
Well, there were giant prehistoric sea snakes that were contemporaries of the Zeuglodons that got 30 feet long, and they're found in the same fossil deposits. So they were in America millions of years ago.
I mean, they're seeing something. Yeah, they're seeing something.
From an interview I did where I answered the question, it says any creature making these journeys would not only have to get around various obstacles, but would have a hard time remaining inconspicuous, especially if it resembles a dinosaur, as some claim. Any creature coming from the Gulf of St. Lawrence would have a journey of 660 miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
A creature coming from the Hudson River would have a journey of 309 miles.
Yeah.
So that's how far they would have to come either direction.
Yeah.
Come from the ocean to get into Lake Champlain. So that's the exact figures right there.
Yep.
So whatever, if you're saying that, the thing that makes the most sense to me is that they was there the whole time, maybe from the, from the.
Well, that's what I think too. I think they've been trapped probably for the last 10,000 years.
Yeah.
They would have had to have a population probably somewhere in the neighborhood for healthy genetics, maybe 500 individuals, thousands of years ago.
Right.
To have a healthy population now, theoretically, they would have to have probably about 50 individuals. But we don't know enough about whatever is in Lake Champlain to know if these animals are not dying out.
Yeah, it's true.
There could be 3 of them in there now, almost extinct, and we don't know it. You know.
That'd be a shame to think
I
of
mean,
it. It's a shame to even think about it.
How are you supposed to have a population study on a group of animals that you haven't confirmed yet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All we can say, there are reports of more than one individual together on rare occasions at both Loch Ness and Lake Champlain.
Okay.
And there are also reports of, quote, baby ones and juveniles.
Ah, okay.
That would seem to indicate that there is, or at least was, a breeding population of some sort.
Okay.
So we don't know.
That's interesting. I didn't know.
The only thing I can point to relative to Lake Champlain that might give us a ballpark figure is the lake sturgeons that live in the lake.
Yes.
They've been isolated probably somewhere along the lines of 6,000 years in the lake. And they estimate that based on genetic studies that there was a historical population of 3,000 of them. And that's 6 times the 500 figure that you need to have a healthy population of champs.
Right.
And the sturgeons in Lake Champlain are very rarely seen.
Yeah.
So if you had an animal with a smaller population that was just enough to keep it going, but was much smaller than the sturgeon population, you know, you might have a healthy population of these animals.
Sure.
Yet it'd be very rarely seen.
Sure.
Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. I was reading or watching somewhere that the lake's sturgeon there, the population was dropping so much that they had actually started a rebreeding program, and was
there's been attempt to enhance the natural breeding thing by gathering the eggs and fertilizing the eggs in a fish farm.
Oh, okay.
Like
and it was like in a old what do you call it? Where they collect sand, a quarry is where they was actually doing it.
Yeah.
Well, they do studies, and they take genetic samples and they tag them in the rivers where they come in to spawn. And supposedly the sturgeons are bouncing back.
Yeah. The reason I was asking that is because, I mean, if that population is coming back, I mean, that would be a big food source for the.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Any kind of fish predator living in Lake Champlain doesn't have to worry about food. There's 83 different kinds of fish living in Lake Champlain. And they know from the fossil record, they have found plesiosaur bite marks on aquatic bird bones from the age of the dinosaurs.
Wow.
So I wouldn't be surprised that if champ is some kind of plesiosaur-like reptile, it's probably eating water birds as well.
Oh, sure.
Probably feeding on frogs and salamanders, mud puppies, all kinds of. I've seen crayfish in the lake as big as my hand.
Wow.
So they probably eat those too. So it's, you know.
I'd imagine it would eat whatever it can get its teeth around, you know?
Yeah,
I mean.
Absolutely. Well, the thing you have to understand is that some of these fossil marine reptiles could dislocate their jaw like a snake and eat bigger prey than the size of their head. You know how a snake can dislocate its bottom jaw and eat something bigger than the size of its head? You see the images of the anaconda sitting on the beach with something the size of a cow in its belly. That's how it's able to do that.
Right.
Well, now, mosasaurs, which were contemporaries of the plesiosaurs, giant marine lizards, could do that. These things fed on plesiosaurs. But this is important. Plesiosaurs could not dislocate their jaws.
Okay.
Whatever they ate, they had to either bite and twist off into chunks or eat prey the size of their head.
Okay.
It makes sense why they believe most of these small-headed, long-necked plesiosaurs ate large quantities of small fish. So I would imagine that if we're dealing with a plesiosaur in Lake Champlain. That's what it's doing. It's following around large schools, probably in deep water, of small fish. And it's eating a lot of small fish.
Makes
Because
sense.
it doesn't, it's smaller than the size of its head.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that makes perfect sense. You've
It
got all
does.
kinds of small, medium-sized fish in the lake for it to feed on.
Ah, there we go.
Plesiosaur skeleton, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, how big is that tell you a size?
No, this is just a one that they found, a whole one. I just thought it was remarkable how Scott was talking about the how the feed structure and stuff was.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
see, the main difference, you look at a sea turtle, and you'll notice that the sea turtle on the front flippers has a full set of flippers like the plesiosaur.
Right.
But you look at the back legs of a sea turtle, and they're different. The back legs of a sea turtle still have toes and are much smaller. And the reason why is that turtles never developed the ability to give live birth in the water. Plesiosaurs did. They gave live birth like a dolphin. But
Okay.
sea turtles are still tied to the land to come ashore to lay eggs. So their back flippers are still built to help push the body up onto the beach and also to help dig the nest.
Right.
Plesiosaurs apparently didn't have to do that. But that still doesn't rule out the possibility they could be amphibious and occasionally come ashore for whatever reason, maybe to get rid of parasites that won't live.
Whatever, yeah.
Or maybe they come ashore occasionally to get small animals on land on the beach.
Which is definitely a possibility.
Or maybe just out of curiosity, maybe occasionally once they get a wild hair up their ass and say, hey, I'm going to go up here and see what's going on.
well, and on the Sasquatch side of it, we talk about, genetic, how would we say, evolution, over generational periods, in the sense the time that they came in, to develop into the freshwater side. We don't know if maybe their bone structure and their fins.
Yeah. I mean,
changed.
The last confirmed plesiosaurs we know about are 65 million years old. So that's 65 million years that if they managed to survive, God knows what evolution could have done to them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And interestingly enough, from the fossil record, from the age of dinosaurs, we do know that there were freshwater plesiosaurs. So they did live in freshwater.
That I did not know.
Yeah.
I did not know that either.
They had the ability, like a bull shark, to go back and forth between.
Aha.
It just makes sense. I mean,
Yeah,
It
a lot of
does.
Yeah.
It does. Scott, I got to throw this question out there too.
Yeah.
And I probably asked you before, but I'm going to ask it again. I've been obsessed with this phenomenon for a long time. What are your thoughts on Mokili and Membe?
Well, if you take the reports at face value, it sounds like some kind of sauropod dinosaur.
What are y'all talking about?
The dinosaur type creature the natives see in Congo, Cameroon area.
The what now?
It kind of the natives. Help me out, Scott.
It's dinosaur that's been reported from the Congo area of Africa.
Oh, almost like the Komodo dragon. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There are different theories about what the Mokili Mbembe could be. The most popular one is that it's some kind of long-necked brontosaurus sauropod dinosaur. But two other interesting theories is that it could be a giant monitor lizard like a Komodo dragon with a long neck.
Sure.
And the other idea is that it could be a large, giant soft-shell turtle. There are soft-shell turtles in Africa and Asia that get the size of a sea turtle. So that idea is not ridiculous at all.
Right.
And it would have the long neck like a dinosaur. So I don't know. I think there's something going on. And a lot of the footprints that are found associated with Mokili Mbembe look like the footprints of fossilized sauropod dinosaurs.
Being a tracker, Gary, you should check one of these pictures out. Tracks.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to.
Are you familiar with a cryptozoologist named William Gibbons?
Yes.
William Gibbons has made like 5 trips over there, come back with footprints, and he found some kind of a bone.
Huh.
I interviewed him on my podcast a while back. If you'll look on Blog Talk Radio, my podcast is called The Haunted Sea, and if you look up the interview with William Gibbons, we talk about this for like 2 hours, and we got footprints and everything. So yeah, I don't believe that Mokele Mbembe is some kind of plesiosaur-like creature.
No, me neither.
But I do have an open mind on the idea of it being some kind of amphibious brontosaurus type dinosaur, possibly a turtle or a monitor lizard. Those are the 3 best theories going, I think.
Yeah. Because we're talking remote. That's wild. That's a wild area. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, I mean it's bigger than some
Congo.
states. You know these swamps.
Exactly.
And you go back in there, and you got all these nasty snakes and poisonous snakes.
Yep. Exactly.
And bugs and disease and all kinds of.
Oh
A lot of reason a lot of people don't go looking back in there is because of all the crazy military coups that go on between the different tribes.
Oh yeah, kind of that Congo area, Cameroon.
Very unstable political area. You know, I mean, who wants to get back in there with some bunch of crazy nuts fighting a civil war with guns?
No, and that's why I think a lot of things probably go undiscovered in that part of the world, along with other parts of the world.
Yeah. So that's a very problematic area to go look.
Yeah, sure.
But that doesn't mean it's not there. You know, it just makes it harder to find.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember looking at one of the footprints, and it reminded me of, if it was big and circular, but it had like see the 3 big toenails would have been.
Yeah, well, that's basically what the footprint of a sauropod dinosaur looked like. It was like an elephant's foot.
Yeah.
Right.
With reptilian toes.
Yeah, I was gonna say like an elephant kind of.
Like a round pan shape with toes coming off it. Yeah.
Yeah. Very. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
How do you spell that sauropod?
Sauropod. That was the whole family of dinosaurs that included Brontosaurus, Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, that whole group of long-necked giant dinosaurs. And some of those creatures got 150 feet long.
That's amazing. Now, they think this
existed. Probably the biggest land animal that ever existed on Earth.
That's amazing.
Dinosaur. Yeah.
This would have to be one of the smaller ones, correct?
Of course, it's generally a Mokele Mbembe, usually in the 30-foot range.
That's not. Yeah, it was when I remember
That's
seeing.
More like it right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, that's from Glen Rose State Park. That's the famous dinosaur footprints in Texas.
That's what these prints I saw on. They look like.
William Gibbons has got photographs of footprints from the Congo that look just like that.
Right.
Now.
So that's pretty good evidence that it might be a sauropod dinosaur. Because
now let me just play devil's advocate.
Monitor lizard don't look like that, and the footprints, the traces of a soft shell turtle don't look like that either. So
right.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Gary. Yeah.
I just got to play devil's advocate here.
Yeah, sure.
Being the tracker and seeing that.
Yeah.
I
would really want to see those other pictures, but even elephants look like that in deep.
They do.
Substrate. You
got elephants in Africa, so.
Yeah, I'm real curious. I'm gonna have to listen to that podcast and pull up.
Watch the Monster Quest episode on it, and they show really good.
Is on the Monster Quest episode. That's
okay.
Yes, watch them. Yes, then you'll see a really good track, Gary. Fresh one.
Well, speaking of Monster Quest, Nate, I sent you the Monster Quest episode that Mr. Scott was on, Lake Champlain.
Thank you. I'm gonna check that out for sure.
It's primo. It's awesome. It's awesome. I remember watching that before I even knew Scott. It was
well, in saying back on Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
I've got, a million questions, but I'm not going to get into it. Do you think that there might be any chance that it, with being down here and we've proven that they're in Oklahoma, I don't want to bring up the whole New York City sewer thing, but do you think there's any way that it could be maybe even like a saltwater crocodile in Lake Champlain?
Nah, somebody would have already been attacked. It would have been like Lake Placid.
True.
The movie.
I mean, you know the story of Gustav, right?
Oh yeah, I've got
yeah.
a documentary on CD.
That's what it would be like if there was a saltwater crocodile.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think a saltwater crocodile could survive the winter temperatures.
Yeah, you got a good point. You got a good point.
It doesn't have the physiology to survive winters that brutal.
Not up here, not the brutal winters up here.
Alligators can survive those kind of temperatures for a few days.
Yeah.
But not for like 3, 4, 5 months.
Right.
Well, a key point, we just had that rash of 19 days of sub freezing below zero.
Yeah.
They were frozen with their nose sticking out of the water.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, I don't think that. But that's for what? A week?
Well, they died. That killed the alligators.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It killed them.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I honestly believe, if you used to look at it with common sense, unless it would be a sturgeon misinterpretation, the whole thing of them staying there, being a breeding population from the time of that it was an inside ocean, would make sense.
That's the way I lean, but we have to confirm that yet. First, we have to beyond doubt that there is a weird animal in the lake, then figure out what it is.
Yeah.
And what this entails is either getting a biopsy dart tissue sample of one alive, which is a harmless process, being able to get close enough one to get a small tissue sample. You could get enough genetic information out of a small tissue sample to tell you the population structure, how healthy the population structure is, and what it's related to, or finding the carcass on the bottom or in a cave somewhere underwater of a recently dead one.
Now, didn't they pull a carcass up years back? The Japanese fishing boat.
Oh yeah, I'm doing a series about that on my podcast right now.
Okay.
The Maurice carcass.
Okay. All right. Then I won't push you on any then if you're doing something.
Whether it was simply a mutilated shark carcass or something along the lines of a plesiosaur, a reptile.
Well, you brought up part of my next question. Is you hear a lot of them stories of them traversing long distances in caves. How feasible is that with the geology there at Lake Champlain?
Of an underwater river connected to the sea.
Yeah.
All the way to Lake Champlain. The problem with that is every time the tides went out, you would notice the tides going in and out at Lake Champlain.
Yeah.
There would be evidence of salt salinity in the water.
In the water, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you had plesiosaurs coming in and out from the ocean through an underground river, you'd have all kinds of other oddball things popping up as well from the ocean. And we don't see that. So.
True. Yeah.
So you've been there a long time, Scott, and I know a lot of folks has asked you this, but outside of the anomaly that you found on the sonar, have you had sightings yourself?
I had a sighting of something in 1994, July 1994. I saw this big humped, what looked like a mound of a back, a garbage bag color, a greenish black, come up. I was watching it through binoculars, probably about 1,000 yards away. And in the middle of this big hump, which I estimate to be about 15 feet wide, was another smaller object, which I took to be either a head or possibly a flipper.
Mm.
The whole thing turned to the right, and the smaller object was on the right end of it, and it started bouncing along, swimming to the right for a few seconds, and then stopped, and it sank like a rock.
So that was intelligent movement to it.
Yeah. I mean, it looked, I mean, theoretically, it could have been a really big piece of wood debris being propelled by water, but I think it was an animal. It looked like an animal to me.
Sure. Very
And
cool.
reminded me of a leatherback sea turtle.
Really?
In general, the general appearance of it and the shape of it, which I think trying to reconcile what I saw with a plesiosaur. If it was a plesiosaur with a long neck, it was swimming on its side, and that smaller object was a flipper sticking up in the air. It's the best explanation I can come up with to reconcile it with the normal reports of these long-necked plesiosaur-like creatures.
That my first thought would be a sturgeon, but a sturgeon doesn't even have a dominant pectoral, or dorsal fin. They're just kind of around
dorsal fins, but they're way down
on the lower tail. Yeah,
they're very small.
Yeah.
They're not prominent like what you see on a shark, but they do have dorsal fins.
Right.
And they're way down the back. Normally, when a sturgeon is at the surface, what you see is a round back with these scoots on it like a crocodile.
Yeah. Now, do they have paddlefish in Champlain?
Not in Champlain, no, but
okay.
I think the northern. Well, there's some up in Canada, but there's no paddlefish in Lake Champlain.
Okay. I never heard of any, or the St. Lawrence. No.
And we don't have alligator gars in Lake Champlain. We have the normal long-nosed gars.
Yeah. Right.
They can get like 5 feet long, but they're not as their snout is much thinner than an alligator gar's.
Yeah.
They don't have the bulk.
Yeah.
The reason I was wondering is I seen a paddlefish. It was doing something. I don't know what it's doing, but the paddle come up out of the water like that, and it was kind of.
Well, it's the paddlefish is really just a type of sturgeon.
Yeah.
Cousins of sturgeons. They found out recently they can even crossbreed with sturgeons.
Really?
Yeah. And they've also found out that alligator gars and long-nosed gars can produce hybrids too.
Huh.
So there could be all kinds of weird crossbreeds between fish producing weird-looking things that we don't know about,
Yeah, absolutely.
Does Champlain have that northern pike?
Yes, we have pike.
Muskie, right? Muskies? Yeah.
Tiger muskies, which is a hybrid between
that's right
pike and a muskellunge, and chain pickerels too.
And pickerels,
What?
Smallest of the group.
Yeah.
The reason I was asking if that northern pike, if they're chasing a bait fish, they'll hit the top of the water like that and, kind of bow up their back a little bit. But that wouldn't explain 20 or 30 foot because it only gets 6 feet long.
Believe it or not, there's this oddball report from Lake Champlain from like 1952, I think, of these people claiming to see a champ chasing a northern pike. Yeah.
I mean, if it's a predator.
If it's a predator,
yeah. We have all kinds of prehistoric fish from the age of dinosaurs in Lake Champlain. We got bowfins. We've got gars, sturgeons, sea lamprey.
Yeah.
We've got humongous snapping turtles. I saw one with my own eyes the size of a garbage can.
Yeah, they get big.
Mud puppy salamanders, which have been caught by fishermen in the past. And they're so weird looking, people thought that they had caught a baby monster.
They are. We catch them bullhead fishing quite a bit at night. Yeah.
So there's all kinds of weird looking prehistoric creatures that we know about in Lake Champlain. Much less.
If you look at some of the old pictures of some of the muskie that were caught in the St. Lawrence and Lake Champlain from back in the 30s and 20s and 30s, Gary, if you Google that after. Scott, they were what? They got 7 feet long at one point. I mean, they don't get that big anymore. I mean, but you don't see them like that anymore. But back in the day,
they've been overfished,
Right.
They were
amazing.
The more you stress a fish population, and smooth the bigger individuals, then these bigger individuals don't have the ability to procreate and make other big babies.
Right.
So what you're left with if you overfish a population is the dregs of the population have to carry on reproducing
Yeah.
the next generation. So
That's the problem we're getting into with the record holding, alligator gars here in Oklahoma and Texas.
well,
Is
some
there-
places they're protected now.
Yeah, they are.
Step in because of that.
Yeah, especially down on the
Magnificent
Trinity.
fish. They've been around since the age of the dinosaurs.
What's that?
The gars. And
Oh yeah.
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 In fact, there's a place up in the Arctic where they found freshwater plesiosaur teeth with gar scales.
Wow.
In the same fossil deposits.
Very
So it's
interesting.
entirely possible that plesiosaurs were eating guards
Yeah.
back during the age of dinosaurs.
Wow.
Maybe if they're still around in Lake Champlain, they're still eating them. I don't know.
If they're there, why not?
If it was a more temperate climate, you could even try to throw out maybe a manatee or something like that. But I don't think they wouldn't even get up that far north.
No.
Well, there was one
would
time in
think.
Connecticut
There was?
Really?
back in the 80s. Yes. Yes.
Wow. I stand corrected.
Yep. Let me see if I can bring that up. Hang on. Actually, you go ahead and Google it yourself. Punch up Manatee, Connecticut, and it should come up.
Connecticut.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's like, I don't know, 98, somewhere in there.
Jeez. God, what forced it to go up that far?
Well, the same manatee once swam all the way to Chesapeake Bay, and then they carried it back, and then it eventually swam up to Connecticut.
Right here.
Did you find it?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's not. So a creature often wanders from its home and swims north up the east coast in the summer. Many summers have been punctuated by a manatee visitor in Connecticut waters. A male manatee named Chessie became famous when he was spotted swimming up the coast in 1994.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. What year was it? 98?
94.
Okay, I knew it wasn't too far.
He was caught equipped with a radio transmitter and returned to Florida by plane. In the summer of 95, he again came north and made it all the way to Rhode Island before turning south. He was since lost the transmitter.
So, yeah, these things happen.
In 2010, a manatee was seen at the docks of the Mystic Seaport. Where's that at?
Mystic, Connecticut.
Mystic, Connecticut. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mystic River, right? That would be, that goes from Boston, right?
13 feet long, 3,500 pounds.
That's
There
a,
was
that's
a
a
manatee,
big animal.
There was a beluga whale swam all the way to Montreal up the St.
Yes, I remember that. I remember.
2005, I think.
Yep, I remember when that happened.
So yeah,
Yep.
these things, but usually, the thing is, when these things happen, they usually recognize immediately what it is. I mean, they didn't mistake this beluga for a plesiosaur, and they didn't mistake.
Yeah.
Right.
They knew almost immediately what it was. So.
That's amazing. And being a mammal, it had no problem going from salt to freshwater.
Yeah.
Correct. I mean,
Well, man,
with
have the ability to flip their metabolism to go from salt.
okay,
So it wouldn't have been a problem at all.
gotcha.
But like I said, belugas can only stay in freshwater so long or they'll go blind, apparently.
Yeah.
Hey, Scott, what about the groupers? Those big fish.
Oh, we have those down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got them in Champagne?
No.
Oh,
No.
We have bass, which is a small grouper.
Yeah.
So a grouper is nothing but a giant saltwater bass.
Okay. I know they get real big. I've seen
Yeah.
300-400 pounds.
I've heard that they've grabbed a hold of people and killed them too.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's old stories of pearl divers in the South Pacific diving for pearls disappearing, and they think it's groupers.
What's the biggest one out of the bunch?
The Goliath grouper, I think, from Australia,
Yeah.
Okay.
13 feet long, maybe.
Unbelievable.
Jeez.
Wow.
Imagine a giant bass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge
Bigger
cows.
than human. That's how
Yeah.
big these things are. Yeah.
My
Other than
God.
that, they look just like a largemouth bass.
And think of the power of bass, the largemouth bass has when you're fighting it, trying to bring it in. Imagine
Yeah.
a grouper.
Footer.
Well,
Yeah.
those guys that go out deep sea fishing for the saltwater ones and bring up the big ones. But they're using the kind of fishing equipment you go out to fish for a great white shark or a marlin.
Right.
Yeah, you know.
Excuse me.
Wow. That's incredible.
Okay, the world record for a hook and line capture of the grouper was a 308 kilogram, 680 pounds.
Oh my God.
Caught off of Ferdinand Beach, Florida in 1961.
That is big.
Well, I've seen some old photographs of some real hogs.
Wow. And it did say that they could temporarily survive in brackish water, but they was strictly a marine.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with them occurring in cold water. But now you do have some big marine fish that live in cold water, like what is that fish? It's a big flat fish. I think it's a flounder.
Yes, flounder.
Flounder, yeah.
They live up in cold water because they.
We used to catch them all the time in New Hampshire. Yeah.
There you go.
Too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't they catch flounders and stuff up in Alaska, up in the Sound?
Yeah. There you go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Alaska, you got the allm lake monster up there.
Well, now what is this? What is that?
It's some kind of a large fish-like creature living in a lake in Alaska. This humongous lake, Lake Iliamna.
Wow.
Reports of it seem to generally report a fish-like creature with a dorsal fin. So it sounds like maybe a sturgeon, maybe a Greenland shark. I don't know.
Greenland.
Yeah. Jeremy Wade did a show on that, and he kind of thought that it was a big white sturgeon.
Probably, yeah. I mean, they get huge. They can get like I said, like the Atlantic sturgeon, they get about 14 feet long.
Yeah.
That's massive. I mean,
they come into freshwater. They go up the Columbia River and this river in Idaho.
Snake
River.
Snake River.
Snake River. Yes.
Well, there's supposed to be a monster there as well, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, absolutely. So maybe there's overlap there. Maybe the monster is a really big sturgeon.
Well, one thing that I'm seeing though is, and Scott, as you get to know me more, I'm a very skeptical minded. I'm real big into cryptozoology, but
that's a good way to be. There's nothing wrong with skepticism. I would rather be skeptical than be a gullible true believer, because some of those people will believe anything.
Yeah.
There's stories of guys pulling sturgeon out of the Columbia River with tractors. They're so big.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean,
I don't know what the record is or anything, but I mean,
Well, I mean, you think about it. I'm 6 foot tall, 300 pounds. I mean, I'm below 300 now, but pretty big old boy. And a 60-pound catfish literally pulls me around like I'm nothing.
Well, yeah, I've heard of sturgeons in Lake Champlain pulling a boat.
Yeah.
Big boat.
But what I was saying about the skepticalism, I'm noticing that a lot of the so-called monsters that we hear are overlapping with gar, sturgeon, like you're saying. So there could be a lot of misidentification there, but Lake Champlain is different.
I know for a fact there are reports from some places down in the rivers of Texas and Arkansas of creatures that have been described as mosasaurs and ichthyosaurs, and I believe that those reports are nothing but big alligator gars. Because if you look at a mosasaur and an alligator gar, they look a lot alike.
Yeah.
But the only thing different is the fins and the flippers, but the head and all that looks very similar.
Yeah, because I've been fishing these waters. I mean, me and my dad do a lot of fishing. We've never seen nothing like that. We've seen some big catfish. We've seen some big gators. We've seen some big, alligator gar. I've seen an alligator gar longer than me, and they're massive.
There are supposedly old reports of 11-foot alligator gars.
Oh yeah, there's
that would make me get out of the water.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm more afraid I haven't noodled in the last 5 or 6 years is the stinking snakeheads.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Them things
are all over the place. They're in New England too.
Yeah.
And you know what? They look almost like a bowfin.
Yeah, they
The
do.
only way you can tell the difference is the arrangement of the fins.
Are
Open
those
their
the
mouth.
ones from? Are those from Asia? The ones they brought in that are
Yes.
killing everything?
Yeah.
They're amphibious too.
Yeah, but they're dang good eating. God, I love eating them things. That
I
white,
never ate one, but
that meat's just like a white,
Is
you
it
know,
really?
like a bass. You know, that real white, flaky.
yeah. I mean, I've eaten eel, I've eaten frog legs, all kinds of stuff like that. Alligators. So I'm not allergic to it, but I've just never had an opportunity to eat a snakehead.
You know, you're talking about them looking like a bowfin. I've mistaked a lot of them, and then they say you open up their mouth, but they say they got the temperament of like a pike, but they'll stick with you more. Where a pike will hit you and go away, the snakehead will keep coming back around at you.
There was some show I was watching about an emergency room disasters, and they brought in this guy. This really happened. Brought in this guy with an alligator snapping turtle on his neck.
Oh, geez.
Grabbed the hold of his neck, and they were trying to pry its jaws loose to get it off his neck.
Yikes.
Dumbass had somehow picked it up and was playing with it, and it got on his neck.
Wow.
I mean, how stupid you had to be to do something that, you know.
Yeah.
You know what we say about snapping turtles down here, don't you?
What?
We call them a lightning strike because they ain't going to let go until the lightning strikes them.
Yeah, you have to chop their head
Right.
off. Then it'd be chancy after that if you can get it loose.
Yeah.
That might actually make it worse, you know?
You know, back on Champlain, something else I wondered, you know, I've seen a lot of beaver in the water, and you know how they'll slap the water and they'll raise their tail up, and has there been any mistake? You know, we know there's a lot of beaver.
Not at Champlain, but there was a video shot in 1989 on Okanagan Lake.
Yeah.
There was a segment on Unsolved Mysteries about it.
I remember that.
And there's no doubt that what the guy filmed was a beaver.
There's a beaver.
And they even took stills from the video and put it next to an image of a beaver slapping its tail, and it just proved it.
Yeah.
And they never could convince the guy that what he had seen was a beaver.
Nope.
That's what it was.
Because I've seen beavers 65 pounds.
Well, there used to be one the size of a black bear at the end of the Ice Age called Castor.
Imagine that.
Yeah. They lived up in New England and all over the Midwest. Yeah, look up, punch up giant beaver, prehistoric giant beaver, Castoroides. Castoiirdes.
Yeah, Castoroides.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It
Wow.
did about the size of a black bear. So imagine that.
Whoa.
Well, I tell you what, being a noodler like I am, that is one of that and the snake ball is the two things that I'm afraid of the most, because I've seen people lose their hands to a beaver.
Look at that.
I was reading not too long ago, some guy got attacked on the leg by a beaver and died.
Yeah,
Really?
Infection.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah, they supposedly have a nasty disposition.
Kind of like a fisher. They got a nasty attitude as well.
I've heard the most terrible things about is the Wolverine.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Oh yes.
Really, really nasty.
Wolverine's your territory.
Part of this. I mean, take them, the fisher. I mean, they're all part of the same family. You know, maybe it makes sense.
Hey, what was you saying?
I was just going to say the we have a lot of badgers up here. We do have wolverines, but they're pretty rare. You got to go up high to find them in real remote places. But there's a lot of badgers. You know, they're pretty common, but they're real too. They'll come right after. You know, you almost have. They're coming after you. You got to kill them, or they'll just keep coming.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I've been doing some field research into Florida monsters down here.
Okay.
Much more cautious down here because at Lake Champlain, I have to worry about alligators and pythons.
Right.
And a lot of the weird things, you know, that are running around Florida in the water.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
It's too cold for them up there, the creepy crawlies, so I don't have to worry about them as much. I'm much more cautious about getting in the water in Florida than I am.
You ain't joking. Yeah, I tell you what, it ain't just the water. A friend of mine sent me some video. I'll see if I still have it. He was driving down the road. I think he even put it on YouTube. He was driving down the road and he seen snakes. Seen a snake going across the road, a big snake.
Yeah.
He thought it was a python, and he jumped out on to go over and grab it. And the thing was in waist tall grass, and it raised up, and it was eye level with him, and fanned out this big. It was a king cobra.
I was gonna say mamba or cobra.
Cobra.
7 feet, 12 feet long.
Dude, I'd just curl up in the ball and have a heart attack.
I mean, you don't have long to live if a mamba or a cobra or mamba, something like that, hits you good. You don't have much time.
What has caused that is man. We've the ones that brought them over here, you know.
Sure.
Exotic pet trade.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Exactly.
Now they've got cars.
That was outside of Lake Okeechobee. That was just south of Lake Okeechobee in Florida.
That's what it is.
Good.
Now they've got alligator gars popping up in Asia.
Yeah.
Because the exotic pet trade goes two ways. The Asians are buying our big fish. And now they're reporting that there are arapimas, wild arapimas in the rivers of Florida in some places.
I can believe
they are massive.
Yeah.
Now, you talking see, here we go again. You talking arapimas. Do you have tarpon in Champlain?
No, we have tarpons here in Florida though. It's about sports fishing.
Yeah, because that's usually a warm
place not far from me, probably 50 miles north of me, called Tarpon Springs.
Yes,
where people go tarpon fishing on.
The arapaima is big, though, weren't they? I mean, they get what, 10 feet?
Scales like a tarpon.
Yeah, they're actually kin. They're
okay. Well,
yeah.
The scales are very similar to a tarpon.
Yeah. They're remember Jeremy Way hit him in the chest, and he had problems with his chest for years.
Yeah. Well, the reason I was asking is, I've fished for tarpon quite a bit down here off the coast, and when they get rolling, you get a school of them, and they'll get rolling, and they'll be out of the water this far. So that could have. I'm just rolling things through my head that's
why people fish for them, like marlins. They fight.
The Olympians of the sea. Yeah.
Well, it's not just the sea though. They've been there's tarpons in the Tampico River in Mexico, which is like miles inland.
Oh no, I was talking about marlins, but
marlin, yeah.
I didn't know that though, Gary. You just said this. I didn't know that.
There was a guy that was sword fishing. The swordfish flew out of the water and killed him.
Yep.
In the chest.
Oh my God.
Almost like what happened to Steve Irwin with the stingray.
Yeah. Oh, a damn barracuda. I don't know. Be offshore fishing, a barracuda come in the boat with you.
I have found a dead barracuda on the beach back in 1980 when I was a kid.
In Florida or?
Yeah, in Florida. We were on vacation. I found it on the beach. And it was scary. It had teeth about an inch long.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. They're like a pike, man. Like a saltwater pike.
Yeah, it's basically a pike's got the same kind of teeth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow. And they get nasty, right? Barracuda.
Pikes will occasionally attack people. Very rarely, but it has.
They definitely do.
Yeah.
I've had pike. I've had, say a small one on, just a little one, and had a bigger one come up behind it and grab onto it as I'm reeling the little one in. I mean, that happens all the time. Yeah. They are they're cannibalistic, and they're an aggressive good.
One reason you can't keep a pike for long in an aquarium, they suffer from fin rot. Their fins will rot in an aquarium. So that's why you don't very much if you go to an aquarium, you don't see them much.
Does that go for the whole family? Muskie, pickerel, tiger muskie?
I wouldn't see why it wouldn't be.
Right.
Yeah. Right. They're still looking fish.
That's pretty wild.
We got all of those in Lake Champlain.
Oh yeah.
Well, and once again, I have to go back to that because I'm pure naturalist. Nate's kind of the same way, and Jeremiah's the same way. But unlike Nessie over in, Loch Ness. With Lake Champlain, you definitely have the food structure there to support one.
Absolutely. Beyond doubt. Well, there's, some people think that with the migratory fish in Loch Ness, there is enough to support a small population, even in Loch Ness.
Okay.
But then like I said, we don't have that problem at Lake Champlain. Lake Champlain is crawling with all kinds of fish.
Yeah. And like you said, the mere size of Champlain is just incredible. You get out there and you feel like you're in the ocean.
Didn't you say it was like 125 or 120 miles?
120 miles long. The very tip, one of the bays goes up into Canada, 5 miles.
Yeah.
Wow.
So coming into Canada.
Yeah.
Lake Champlain has a very intimate part of my life. The U.S. Armed Forces Rangers was kind of developed around Lake Champlain. Robert's Rangers.
Rogers Rangers. Yeah.
Rogers Rangers. Yeah.
There's a movie with Robert Young.
Yeah.
And Spencer Tracy. I think it's called, what is the name of that movie? It's made back in...
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, I can't think of the name of the movie, but it's Robert Young.
I got me curious
about Rogers Rangers.
Yeah, I love that story. I've got the book. That was back before. That was back early, but
yeah. So they were all around Lake Champlain, and the Navy was formed at Whitehall, New York, down the very southern end of the lake. Was where the United States Navy was formed in 1812 or something like that. A lot of Revolutionary War naval battles and naval battles for the War of 1812.
No,
on Lake Champlain. There's always
St. Lawrence too. All up in Fort Covington through here. I mean, it's crazy.
Well, didn't George? No, George Washington crossed the Hudson.
And the French Indian War too.
The French Indian War, Yep, absolutely.
All right there on the Canadian border. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
A lot of history there.
And
a lot of history.
Different Indian tribes took the side of the French, and other tribes took the side of the English.
Exactly.
So fighting the war on different sides with different tribes.
You're right. Yep.
Yeah. That was like late 1750s, early 1750s.
Yeah.
And then the War of 1812 broke out.
Yep.
During the War of 1812, there was a lot of piracy going on in Lake Champlain. And the reason why
I'm sure
is they had banned trade between Canada and Vermont. And to get around it, they were doing piracy. There was one ship called the Black Snake, where they actually took the crew prisoner, tried them, and hung them for piracy during that period. Yeah. So there's a lot of weird political things went on during that whole period.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
In saying the First Nations, didn't you say earlier that Champ had her stories goes all the way back to even like the First Nations?
Absolutely. Jeremiah, I'm sure, is familiar with some of that.
Oh yeah.
The
Champ sightings.
The Mohawks called it Oniari.
It goes way back. I mean,
and then that Western Abenaki on the Vermont side.
Yep.
Their name for it was Gitaskok.
Talking about the same thing, just different names.
Different tribal names, different languages.
Well, then that even gives even more credence to us there.
Yes. Yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. They have found arrowheads in sand deposits on the side of Lake Champlain. And what those sand deposits are old beaches from the time of the Champlain Sea. So they know there were Paleo Indians living around the Champlain Sea before it became fresh water, and they were probably hunting seals and whales and whatever else was living.
That's all. It's very interesting. Yeah.
Before it became fresh water. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there are sand deposits around. Like you go up to Albert Dunes, that's old sand deposits from the beaches of Lake Champlain or from the Champlain Sea.
Yeah.
While it was still salt water. So, yeah.
I've learned a bunch.
Yeah, I think we learned the whole. I told you every time I come on with this man, I learn more and more and more.
Well,
Scott, you are an
God,
amazing
there's so
guest,
much,
man.
You know, there's so much to discuss about it.
I know.
I mean, we basically stuck more or less to Lake Champlain and Loch Ness and didn't go off into the sea serpents and all the rest of that stuff, you know?
Well, hey, we always have chosen the future.
That's what I was fixing to say.
We love talking to you, man. So
thank you for having me on. And I'm,
absolutely, Scott.
I've studied this stuff so much I can talk about it in my sleep, you know?
Yeah. I wish.
I had a blast. This is one of the funnest shows we've done in a while.
I told you he's a blast. Yeah. He's just such a wealth of knowledge. It's incredible. But we appreciate it, Scott. And you have yourself a good night, and I will be in touch, man.